Sabatiello's is a restaurant that was featured in Season 1, Episode 15 of Kitchen Nightmares, a reality TV show where celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay tries to help save failing restaurants from going out of business. Sabatiello's is an Italian restaurant located in Stamford, Connecticut, and it's run by Sammy Settembre. The narrator explains that Sammy used to own a pizzeria that was successful, but Sabatiello's is only months away from going out of business, and Sammy is over $1 million in debt. Sammy runs his business kind of like a mafia boss. We see several clips of him arguing with customers and yelling at staff. When he notices that one of his staff gave a customer 8 meatballs in his soup, he says, "Damn, 8 meatballs in there. Why we put so many meatballs? What is he, a friend of yours? Man, you guys go bowling together?" And we also see a clip of him disregarding a customer's complaints and telling them, "If you think of something else to complain about, please get me, I'll be downstairs." But Sammy is extremely confident in himself and the quality of his food. He says in a cutaway, "I make everybody feel like a superstar when they come to Sabatiello's because I'm a superstar and that's why my name is on there. It's all about me." And he later says, "I wasn't really nervous when Chef Ramsay came to the restaurant because I make the best Italian food in the world. I'm awesome and it speaks for itself." Gordon shows up to the restaurant and is personally invited in by Sammy, who gives him a brief tour of the inside. It's a really nice building with 2 levels, and Gordon starts drawing some logical conclusions based on what he sees. He says, "So if the decor is nice and warm, and the host is nice and warm, it must be all about the food, right?" But Sammy insists that his food is very good. Gordon sits down and tries his first dish, which is some kind of soup with meatballs. Unsurprisingly, Gordon hates it, and when he tells Sammy as much, Sammy tells him that the soup is 2 days old, to which Gordon responds, "How can it be soup of the day if it's 2 days old?" Sammy pretends to be unaffected by Gordon's trash talk in front of him, but when he gets back to the kitchen, he lets everyone know how he really feels. In a cutaway, he says, "That soup was 2 days old, but that doesn't mean it's garbage, you know what I'm saying? Who is he, a health department critic?" So he invited one of the biggest food critics on earth into his restaurant and then complained when he didn't like 2-day-old soup. And then he immediately proceeds to throw frozen lasagna into the microwave to serve Gordon for his next dish. Gordon absolutely loves the lasagna. No, I'm just kidding. He hates it and complains about the beef, saying that it looks like dog food. Sammy is indignant at the fact that Gordon doesn't like his frozen lasagna. When asked where the recipe and the beef came from, he answers, "From my mother." And because it's Italian lasagna, it's not a goddamn Chinese lasagna. What the fuck is a Chinese lasagna? Next, Gordon meets with Sammy and the cooks to critique the food, and as usual, he lets loose a tirade of trash talk. Sammy seems genuinely annoyed by Gordon's criticism. When he complains about the lasagna, we find out that not only is it frozen, it's also a week old. Yum. Sammy defends himself by saying, "That doesn't mean it's bad." And in a cutaway he says, "I'm Italian, man. Here's a guy from Scotland. The fuck's he know about lasagna?" Sammy starts getting pissed and says, "Does any chef throw food away if it's not bad? Answer that, Mr. Ramsay." To which he responds, "Every fucking chef I know makes lasagna fresh every day." Sammy refuses to accept Gordon's critique and says, "I can't believe you're telling me my food sucks. I can't believe it. I honestly think you're out of your fucking mind. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong. I think you're a little too critical, overcritical." Gordon leaves the kitchen to get some fresh air, and once he's gone, Sammy says to his staff, "Let me tell you something, man. For a guy to talk like that in front of me like that, I can't believe it. And he's still alive, and we didn't shoot him? Fucking kill that guy?" And in a cutaway he says, "This guy is out of control. I think someone needs to put him in line." Making explicit threats of violence against people on camera is a great idea. In the next scene, Gordon starts going through the kitchen to see how Sabatiello's operates, and while he does compliment them on having a clean kitchen, he also finds a drawer full of pre-cooked food just sitting around, and even worse, raw meat right next to cooked meat. Gordon picks up whatever that is and says, "What the fuck is that? And why is it cooked?" And Sammy answers, "Because we have to make it raw and bake it in the oven. It's going to take too long. The customers are not going to wait. They're going to leave." And Gordon says, "Well, customers aren't here, so how can they leave if they're not here to begin with?" Destroy! But next it's time for the part of the show where Gordon watches a typical dinner service. The first thing that Gordon points out is that a $28 stuffed crab dish uses fake crab meat. Sammy argues that they usually do use real crab meat, but Gordon doesn't seem to buy it. Then a dish gets sent back to the kitchen, and Gordon and Sammy both try it. Gordon says it's terrible, but Sammy refuses to accept that it's not good. Sammy says in a cutaway, "I think we make great food. If I didn't make great food, I wouldn't be here. So for this asshole to fucking tell me that I'm not doing good, it really pisses me off, to be honest with you." But then Sammy has a direct confrontation with a customer. First, a lady who had ordered a rack of lamb complains to the waiter that it's a little bit cold in the middle. So the waiter takes it back into the kitchen and Sammy personally orders an employee to chuck it into the microwave. Then the waiter takes it back to the customer, who immediately notices that the whole plate is warm and asks the waiter if it was microwaved. Maybe you could say that she was being a little bit picky, but judging by the price of that other dish, this is probably a $30 to $40 dish that she ordered. So I can understand being a little bit annoyed that they didn't take the extra 2 seconds to put it into an actual pan and cook it correctly. So the waiter takes the lamb back to the kitchen a second time, but this time Sammy starts flipping out. He says, "What's the matter with it now? What's the matter with it now? Fucking busting my balls. Now wait, let me see it. Now it's too much cooked, or now it's fucking rare, and now it's too much. How did they want the meat cooked the first time? How did they want it cooked? I'm gonna go fucking ask the lady right now." And then he storms over to the lady's table while making a half-hearted attempt to pretend he's not pissed, and in a really condescending tone asks her how she wanted the meat cooked and if she'll wait for them to make another one. She answers, "I'll wait, but the thing is I don't want you to stick it back in a microwave." And Sammy responds, "No, we're gonna throw that one out and make you a new one. No one's talking about a microwave. You're the one that's talking about a microwave." And then the customer explains that it definitely went into a microwave because otherwise the entire plate itself wouldn't be burning hot. And Sammy gets even more pissed and says, "Do you work for a microwave company? You know so much about microwaves." And then he storms back into the kitchen, cursing the whole way there, and tells the kitchen staff, let her wait now." In a cutaway he says, "I don't know if this lady wanted her free meal or whatever. I thought it was a total nightmare. I kept my composure. I wanted to kill her and I didn't." Sammy seems to think that simply not murdering the customer is the standard of care that restaurants have to provide. But then the lady's lamb finishes cooking and Sammy insists on following the waiter over to her table. When they bring the lamb out, the whole restaurant starts clapping, seemingly in a mocking way since they just witnessed Sammy get pissed and be really rude to a customer. But Sammy says, wait, we're not done yet. I want to see you cut into it," in a threatening way, and the customer wisely says, "Actually, I'm good," and refuses to eat it at all. Sammy angrily takes the food back into the kitchen, and in a cutaway he says, "Oh my god, I just wanted to pick her up and throw her out. There's a right way and a wrong way of handling something like that, and she was totally wrong." Keep in mind that they didn't cook the lamb enough initially, then Sammy personally ordered the staff to throw the expensive lamb into the microwave, and then he threw a fit when the customer called him out on it. Sammy starts ranting in the kitchen and throwing plates, and he gets so mad that he tells the staff to shut everything down and send away the rest of the customers. The next day, Gordon meets with Sammy and has a heart-to-heart with him, and he seems to rekindle Sammy's passion for running a restaurant. And for the next dinner service, Gordon comes up with 2 specials, fresh lasagna and steaks. The service starts out promising, and Sammy is optimistic. But before long, Jose, the head chef, starts really dropping the ball. Steak after steak after steak comes back to the kitchen undercooked, and the head chef isn't communicating with anybody. Sammy is clearly upset that the service is falling apart, and he does everything he can to try and get the head chef back on track. But Jose just gets annoyed, and ultimately, at least based on how it looks in the episode, the service is a total disaster. Afterwards, Sammy tells Gordon that if Jose doesn't step up to the plate for the relaunch service, he's going to let him go. And next is the part of the show where they relaunch the entire restaurant. Gordon gives them a whole new menu with steak as the main focus, but this time they didn't do anything to the decor because, as previously mentioned, it was already a nice building. At the start of the service, Sammy is really optimistic, but not long after they start getting orders, Jose and the other kitchen staff start really struggling, and dishes start coming back cold and undercooked. Sammy does his best to try to motivate the staff into doing a better job, but it doesn't seem to help. After a talk with Gordon, Sammy finally just decides to jump behind the line himself and work next to Jose. He's really pissed off, and the whole time he's mumbling about how he should run the kitchen himself, along with random insults thrown in like sucker and cocksucker. Despite all the confusion, it does seem like Sammy jumping behind the line helps, even though his staff continues to struggle. In a cutaway, Sammy says, "Thank God that my kitchen guys are not involved in any bombs or rockets or decisions, or we would all be in danger." And despite the fact that a lot of dishes came back and a lot of people had to wait for their food, when the food did go out correctly, people seemed to really like it. And after struggling through the service, the narrator declares it a success, and that's how the episode ends. When Sammy initially blamed his staff earlier in the episode, I thought he was completely full of shit. But after seeing that last dinner service, I'm not so sure. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of things that Sammy did wrong as well, but they really seem to be struggling in that last service. But maybe I'm being too hard on them. I've always wondered how much time kitchen staff actually have to learn a new menu before the relaunch service. In this episode, the segment where they make all the dishes from the new menu and put them out on the table was shot just 3 hours before the relaunch service, according to the narrator. So, did the kitchen staff get taught how to make everything beforehand off camera? Or did they just see an entire menu for the first time and were expected to learn it all in 3 hours? Despite Sammy's threats to fire Jose and the not so great job he seemed to do in the episode, there was no indication that Sammy let him go after the service. Though, I guess it doesn't matter much either way if the restaurant doesn't stay in business. So, did they manage to stay open? Normally at the end of each Kitchen Nightmares episode, after Gordon says bye to the owners and everything, the narrator gives a brief update like, business is up 20%, or the restaurant is getting back on track. But I noticed in this episode, there was no recap at all, and now I know why. So let's start with an article from NBC Connecticut that I found that gives more insight into how Sammy felt about going onto the show. The article quotes Sammy as saying, "It did hurt me when we were filming. He gave us a few dollars to close for the week, but it wasn't enough to compensate us for the business we lost," he said. "I was a little disappointed because I thought we'd get more out of it than we did." When asked if he'd go through the closure and filming again, Sammy was torn. "If I could do it all over again, I don't know," he said. "I've got a little mixed emotions because I thought they would give a lot more, give more money for being closed, give me a new awning, give me a new stove maybe. They often do that kind of thing, but nope, not for us." And things were not to go well for Sammy after Kitchen Nightmares. As far as I can tell, the episode aired on TV on either the 12th or 13th of December 2008. And according to this article, the restaurant closed down shortly after it aired. It's unclear whether the restaurant closed down due to serving bad food or because of the massive $1 million debt that they had already accrued before the episode was even filmed. The only reviews I was able to find were a Chowhound review, which basically says that the service was great and the food was either mediocre or terrible, and these two reviews on restaurantguru.com. One of them with a 1-star review and the other with 4. If I had to wager, I would guess that the debt probably played a massive role though, because the next thing that happened was that Sammy was evicted from the restaurant. But it gets worse. When the authorities showed up to the restaurant to serve the papers, they found the interior of the restaurant was vandalized, allegedly by Sammy himself. The estimated cost of the damage was $20,000. According to this article, Settembre was not there and the building was locked. Police said Settembre was in control of the building before December 4th and was the only one with a key to the restaurant, which was locked when the vandalism was found, police said. For Sammy's part, he denied causing the damage and said that he had seen some homeless people loitering around outside the building and that some of the doors were hard to lock. But regardless of his denial, Sammy was arrested for first-degree criminal mischief and was later released after signing a written promise to show up in court. But it gets worse still for Sammy, because he was also charged with felony larceny. Allegedly, Sammy took reservations for Christmas from people despite knowing that the restaurant was going to close soon, and then charged one business $20,000 without their permission. Then after his restaurant went out of business, none of those people got their money back. And there's one more bit of info we know about Sammy. He actually opened a pizza place up on December 11th, 2008 in Greenwich. But in this article that was published on September 24th, 2009, it looks like someone else had taken over the business and changed the name by that time. As of November 2021, the restaurant is called Greenwich Pizzeria, and it doesn't seem to have anything to do with Sammy at all. The original restaurant, as of September 2021, is now called Tutti Pazzia, and it's apparently an Italian restaurant and bar. As far as Sammy himself goes, we don't know much about what happened to him or whether he did any time for the crimes he was charged with. There is a rumor that I've seen on several non-journalist sites that is either funny or unfortunate, depending on how you feel about Sammy. The rumor is that Sammy is now working at a gas station in New York called the Appalachian Market, and he's serving pizzas there. But just to be clear, I have found no evidence to back this up whatsoever. I even dug through pictures taken inside the gas station to see if I could see Sammy in there making pizzas or something, and I didn't see anyone that even remotely looked like him. So I don't know where the original claim came from. And the only other thing I found regarding Sammy is a Facebook page with the name Sam Settembre. The only thing on this Facebook page is a series of pictures of Sammy. There's a few of him in various restaurants, one of him in a Maserati, and 2 pictures with this girl in a limo. The pictures were posted to Facebook over a series of years, with the earliest one being posted in 2010, which again is 2 years after the close of the restaurant, and the latest being posted in 2020. This one of him in a Maserati and this one of him delivering pizzas to what looks like a hotel are the ones from 2020. I tried really hard to read what was on those pizza boxes, but it's just too small and blurry to make anything out. We don't really know when these pictures were actually taken though. Some of the earlier ones look really old, like they were taken with a film camera and then scanned into a computer, but the later ones, there's not really any way to tell. In this one where he's delivering pizzas, he is wearing a mask though, so I assume it was taken relatively recently. I also try to see if these pictures were posted anywhere else online and maybe just posted on here as a fake account, but I couldn't find them anywhere but here. That, and the fact that they were posted over a period of 10 years, makes me think that it probably really is Sammy's account. Judging by the pictures, I would surmise that he's no longer with his girlfriend Lauren that he was with in the episode, and it looks like he either runs or is working for a pizza place somewhere, and it also looks like he lost some weight too. But that's pretty much the story for Sabatiello's. I guess the massive debt they had was just too much to overcome, or maybe their food was really mediocre. Or maybe the locals weren't willing to forgive some of Sammy's antics and give him another shot. But either way, Sabatiello's is long gone. So I guess that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.